Project Eve is not a book. It is not a series. It is not meant to be finished. Project Eve is a story that is added to once a year, every Christmas Eve. Each year, a new section is written and appended to the existing file. Nothing is rewritten. Nothing is removed. The story grows the way memory grows, uneven, layered, scarred. The premise is simple. Something is watching. Something has been watching for a long time. And it learns. What changes year to year is not just the narrative, but the world around it. As time passes, the response to Eve shifts. Individuals, institutions, media, belief systems. Fear becomes policy. Policy becomes ritual. Ritual becomes normal. Project Eve exists in real time. It ages with the author. It reflects the year it was written in, what was happening, what was feared, what was ignored. There is no correct place to start. There is no safe ending. Project Eve is released once a year because it is meant to feel like a transmission, not entertainment. Something received, not consumed. If you read it every year, it will read differently every year. Project Eve. The blood smeared across her chapped lips, staining her teeth red like cheap lipstick as she chewed her nails down to the cuticle, spitting the chunks of nail and gristle into the air. Her fingers covered in blood, as if she had sacrificed her digits to a god for protection. She screamed, "And everybody knows about it! Do not treat me like I am fucking crazy! Everywhere I go, I see him. He haunts me every goddamn minute. Turn that shit off!" She screamed as she yanked another piece of flesh and nail off her thumbs. The music in the background bothered her. Words were written on the notepad as Thorazine kicked in, her body folding like a deflated ball, her head thumping on the floor, breaking the skin. The concrete and bone hit just hard enough to spray more blood onto the dim mint-green tile, already bloody from the violent gnashing of teeth against her fingers. The ripped skin now nubs of gore. She sat with legs crossed, now an almost unconscious number in the book. Number 412 as far as the one dragged ink onto the paper. The light illuminated the darkness above the head of the class, a ballet of dust dancing in the beam of light. The professor clicked the lights onto a wide-eyed room full of shocked media. The most prolific sickness we have ever witnessed spread globally without even a lick of attention. Bugger that cancer, COVID, and heart disease all wrapped in one. Once described along the lines of abduction, the stories of those affected are almost in perfect detail from one to the other. Details that could not be shared as many times. The victims are not just words apart, but in many cases years apart. This case you have just witnessed is a recent one in Los Angeles. The key characteristic, well, one of the three, is climate, the other the name, and third, but just as puzzling, is timing. Unlike most outbreaks, this has a very distinct time frame of maximum infection. Subject Eve 6, you have just witnessed, is the latest. Since the study began many years ago, our network, as you can imagine, is 24/7 and global. We have films, files, and notation on thousands. A reporter stood and said, "Why are you going public now?" The attention in the room heightened because we now know the cause and the cure. This phenomenon has eluded millions and in spectacular fashion shows to many as merely a state of exacerbated attitude. It spreads without warning and is being pumped into society like a secret gas upon the masses, most breathing it in as much as possible. Let us take a look at case OU812 from Gothenburg. Notice the name change, but the manifestation stays the same. The lights fell as the projector took over the air once again, this time showing a male in his mid-40s in the triage of a hospital. Listen closely and watch the captioning. The subject is stabbing himself with a pen, with a rage of psychosis-like behavior, screaming about the inability to escape him. One of the unique but not unheard of behaviors in this example is the rage about financial terror, the pressure to spend. This was a factor that threw the community of researchers. We had never seen a symptom of physical action to try and push the sickness away with spending. the most common of all traumas being religion, as many fall into sickness or near-death experiences lead to newfound religion or never-before-seen acts of prayer. The act of spending shared with aging, i.e. middle-aged crisis, was new. As you can see, even after the subject's body lay in a pool of blood, the instruments of his demise surround all with no attention even paid. We have come out to announce at this time because we want to warn the public. After years of study, the most brilliant minds across the globe are disheartened to say we believe there is no cure and to deliver an official list of symptoms. Please note, we have concluded that not all cases are fatal. The studies show over 90% of cases can be noted as just delusion. But in fact, as we announce publicly, there is a network of centers where fatal cases can be brought and handled in a hospice atmosphere. It is encouraged to let the World Health Organization handle these cases, as the end stages, as seen in the examples, can often be violent. The symptoms are as follows. The belief and extreme paranoia of a man breaking into residences all over the globe. Perpetual stalker victims often speak of their knowledge of when people will be asleep and a list of those who are bad. Songs that haunt them on media outlets seem to start in October, and many in the past 30 years claim the songs seem to begin earlier each season. A talk of spirit and loss of it is another known symptom. This abnormality is often coupled with what we now understand as an outbreak of extremely high suicide rates. We mistook depression as the culprit for years, not knowing this is a seasonal psychotic illusion of a mass thought of a time-expanding stalker who comes to visit children at night and tortures his victims with music and media, coupled with financial stress, resulting in death across the globe. Claustrophobia is now a Class 4 virus causing death and psychotic outbreaks. The ticker at the bottom of the screen said, playing over A Miracle on 34th Street. "More pumpkin spice for anyone," Mom said, before she slit her throat screaming, "He sees you while you're sleeping." The man explained, "This is Camp Reynolds with Action 9 News. The recent WHO announcement brings to light stories. Is this the end of Christmas? Or has Christmas been a government ploy all along?" The author turned off his TV, thinking to himself, "I wish I could come up with a good Christmas book idea." In a world where a mysterious and insidious illness spreads unnoticed, Eve 6 becomes the latest victim of a global phenomenon that has baffled scientists and terrorized the masses. This sickness, more devastating than any known disease, manifests itself as extreme paranoia and hallucinations, driving its victims to madness and violence. Eve's descent into insanity is marked by blood, fear, and a relentless stalker who haunts her every waking moment. As her body and mind deteriorate, she becomes a chilling case study in a professor's presentation to a room full of shocked media. The professor reveals the horrifying truth. This sickness has been spreading globally, unnoticed, and there is no cure. With symptoms that include a haunting belief in a stalker, disturbing songs that play incessantly, and a pervasive sense of dread, the illness pushes its victims to the brink. As researchers scramble to understand the cause, the World Health Organization steps in, urging the public to recognize the symptoms and seek help. Originally written as a short story, Project Eve has become a tradition by author Jake Bannerman to add to the story each year for Xmas is a continuing harrowing tale of psychological horror, exploring the depths of human fear and the devastating impact of an unseen enemy. Will humanity find a way to combat this terrifying phenomenon, or will the madness consume us all? Project Eve, Chapter 5. Year 5, the Season of Complications. December 14th, 5 years after initial containment failure. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for assembling so quickly. Please take your seats, silence your devices, and, this is not a joke, do not hum, sing, whistle, or mouth the words to any Christmas song while we are inside the briefing hall. We all remember what happened last year with Dr. Keller and the Bing Crosby incident. Welcome to what the CDC, DHS, WHO, and the newly assembled Seasonal Behavioral Anomalies Task Force, SBATF, are calling Year 5 of Eve, or unofficially, the Season of Complications. Our analysts predicted the Eve infection would stabilize or decline after the fourth winter cycle. Instead, the opposite has occurred. 1. Global Mutation Report. The Eve pathogen, still not biologically traceable, has developed what clinicians are calling behavioral drift clusters. In plain language, instead of just enforcing Christmas behavior, Eve now curates it. Different regions show different compulsions. North America, intensified gift-giving fixation. Subjects have emptied life savings buying presents for complete strangers, pets, and at least one traffic cone. Western Europe, compulsive baking. A Berlin man was hospitalized after inhaling enough powdered sugar to be declared a human snow globe. Japan, hyper-precision illumination. One neighborhood produced synchronized light displays so complex the electrical grid mistook it for cyber-terrorism. Brazil. Natal possession. Choruses appear suddenly, singing Portuguese carols in perfect harmony, despite no shared language or breathing intervals. This is the first recorded year in which Eve expresses preference. In year 1, it merely infected. In year 2, it enforced. By year 3, it expanded. Last year, it solidified. Now Eve behaves like it has a favorite holiday aesthetic and a personal Pinterest board. 2. New symptom, retroactive memory saturation. We have recorded over 1,200 cases of REM phase intrusion. Individuals waking up with detailed memories of Christmases that never occurred. A woman in Nevada remembers a childhood spent sledding despite living her entire life in the desert. A teenager in Ohio vividly recalls the year Dad came home from the war dressed as Santa, despite never having met his father. 3 unrelated individuals in Vancouver insist they once attended the same 1973 office Christmas party, even describing the spinach dip in identical language. These memories are coherent, shared, and often emotionally overwhelming. We fear Eve is not just spreading cheer, it's installing it. 3. Case study. The Choir of One. At 2:13 yesterday morning, local police in Montpelier responded to noise complaints at the Green Pines Assisted Living Center. What they found has been classified until this moment. 93-year-old Mavis H. was discovered standing atop a dining table, eyes closed, singing O Holy Night. Except she was singing 8 vocal parts simultaneously. Her voice had the harmonic spread of a cathedral choir despite her frail condition. The windows shook. The fluorescent bulbs flickered. Staff members reported feeling snow falling inside their lungs. When Mavis finished the final note, she apologized for the disturbance, asked for warm milk, and died peacefully. Autopsy results show no physical explanation for the 8-part vocalization. Her final EEG, however, shows a spike pattern identical to the year 1 patient who ate the nails. 4. Media corruption event, the Eve signal. Our partners in broadcast monitoring report a new phenomenon. At 3:04 a.m. local time across 27 major cities, all active televisions, regardless of brand, model, or power state, lit up simultaneously with a 2-second transmission. A snowy screen, a faint silhouette, a whisper. It's almost time. Some viewers reported hearing sleigh bells. Others heard their full names spoken softly, as if by a familiar voice. One child in Kentucky asked his mother, "Mommy, what does return to the origin point mean?" SBATF has no explanation at this time. 5. The current recommendation. As of today, December 14th, the official seasonal guidance is as follows. Avoid nostalgic stimuli. Do not engage with strangers offering homemade baked goods. Do not attend spontaneous choirs. If you find yourself humming without realizing it, seek immediate evaluation. Above all, do not watch any Christmas movie produced before 1990. These appear to act as behavioral accelerants. We cannot stress this enough. Eve is adapting. Eve is learning. Eve is choosing. And as much as we would like to tell you this is under control, well, that would be the biggest Christmas lie ever told. Closing statement. This marks the 5th consecutive documented year in which the Eve anomaly has escalated. There is no indication it will stop. We will reconvene tomorrow with further updates. And remember, if you hear footsteps on your roof tonight, don't check. The first thing Eve learned how to do without instruction was wait. Waiting, it turned out, required less energy than pursuit, less evidence, less explanation. Things approached Eve on their own if enough time passed. Curiosity outlived fear. Fear softened into routine. Routine hardened into habit. By the 5th winter, the monitoring stations no longer logged anomalies in real time. They logged patterns. The difference mattered. Alarms were expensive. Patterns could be scheduled. The internal memo circulated quietly without urgency. Subject exhibits preference for repetition. No one could say when preference became the accepted term, but no one questioned it either. Preference implied restraint. It suggested choice. It reassured the review board that something was still making decisions instead of simply spreading. The rooftops were not mentioned in the memo. They never were. It was a junior analyst who noticed first that Eve appeared to favor houses with unfinished repairs, loose shingles, unsealed vents, old chimneys no longer used for heat, structures that suggested abandonment without actually being empty. The analyst did not suggest intent. They only highlighted correlation. Correlation was safe. Correlation did not require belief. A follow-up study confirmed it. Eve's appearances clustered around neglect, not decay. Places still lived in, still warm, but slowly being given up on. Homes where people meant to fix things eventually. The report concluded, subject demonstrates sensitivity to transitional spaces. No one asked what that meant. That winter, a local news station aired a human interest segment about unusual sounds reported during the holidays. Footsteps, dragging, light tapping. The anchor smiled through it. A graphic of cartoon snowflakes played behind her shoulder. The clip went viral for 2 days before disappearing. In private correspondence, a contractor asked whether reinforcing roof access points was still discouraged. The response came back automated, stamped with language revised months earlier. Structural alterations increase agitation. Maintain environmental neutrality. No one defined agitation anymore. It was assumed everyone understood. On December 24th, an internal system flagged a deviation. Eve did not appear where expected. The models adjusted. They always adjusted. The deviation resolved itself within hours. By morning, 3 households reported identical dreams. In each, the dreamer stood in their living room while someone moved above them, slowly, deliberately, as if learning the layout by sound alone. None of the dreamers felt fear. All of them reported certainty that checking would be a mistake. 2 attempted to go back to sleep. 1 did not. The final note attached to the annual summary was written by hand and scanned into the system. No one remembered authorizing handwritten addenda, but no one removed it. It read, "Subject no longer responds to observation. Subject anticipates it." That same night, the thermal cameras recorded nothing unusual. The rooftops, however, registered heat retention several degrees above baseline. Not enough to trigger alerts, just enough to suggest presence. By the time the anomaly log reset at midnight, Eve had already moved on. Waiting, after all, had taught her where people eventually look, and where they never do. If you heard footsteps on your roof tonight, you did the right thing by staying still.